polymorphism, basically a dynamic polymorphism. Because this is related to again pointers, that is object pointers or pointers to objects. We'll just review the previous class points, review on the notes. Okay. So base class pointer can be assigned to the address of a base class or a derived class object without need for typecasting. That was clearly understood by us, right? A vehicle is the base class, I mean, as in our example, and then a car is a vehicle. So I can say a car is a vehicle because car is a type of vehicle. So base you can assign a base class pointer to this car. That way, I mean, you will be able to access the car using this base class pointer. Similarly, I mean, the next point says base class pointers and references only know about members of the base class. So we cannot use a base class pointer to access a derived class member, right? So because basic car or say vehicle is having very less features, whereas actual car may have more than the basic features or the least this thing members or data members or member functions. So we cannot access all the additional features of the derived class with a base class pointer. So base class pointer knows only how to access the base class members. So that is what it says. So next point says base class pointer when assigned with the address of the derived class object will ignore any overrides of the derived class performs. Right? So we also saw that. So base class pointer will not take into account the overriding that is done.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, could you please start the recording?
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Right. So this was the slide that we were talking about, the review on the object pointers that we had discussed in the previous class. Right. So derived class pointer can be assigned to the address of the derived class object and can be assigned to the base class object with typecasting. So if you have derived class pointer, it can be assigned directly to a derived class object, very simple and straightforward, but you can also assign to the base class with typecasting, but it is not preferred or not a good, safe practice. That is what we had seen in the previous class. All these points are just a review of the previous points, but these are related to our present discussion. So you should remember these things. So I just thought of reviewing these points. Right. So now coming to polymorphism and virtual member functions. So as the name says, polymorphic, I mean, quite, literally that is the meaning. So polymorphic code is that code which behaves differently when it acts on different objects or different types of objects. Right. So the same code that tries to behave differently when it acts on a different object. Okay. So it's not the same code basically. The name of the function would look the same, and the signature, everything will look the same. But the choice of the function, like I'll show that in the next few slides. So suppose you have 4 functions with same names. Now among the 4, which one should the compiler choose to activate? So that depends on certain rules. So that is what we are trying to observe. So polymorphic code means the function name looks similar, but the compiler will attach or will call that particular function as per the rule. So we'll see what is the meaning and how it works. Okay. Right. So virtual member function, that is the mechanism for achieving polymorphism in C++. So using virtual member functions, we will be able to achieve polymorphism in C++. So if you want to do polymorphic code, then you are supposed to use virtual member functions. Right. So if you remember, I mean, the definition that we told, or that I just now told you, we have already seen that, right? I mean, if you remember the function overloading, that was quite similar, or a quite familiar concept, which is also polymorphic. The same function name, but with different parameters. So looking at the parameters, the compiler will be able to understand which function to call. Correct. So that is one example of polymorphic code which we have already seen. So polymorphism is the ability of C++ to determine which operation or which function to use among many of the same name. So as I told you, we have already seen such cases as in the example of overloading, function overloading. Now let us see what is the difference between that idea of function overloading and this new concept of virtual functions and dynamic polymorphism. So as I told, we have already seen the ideas of type conversion, operator overloading, and function overloading. These are also examples of polymorphic code which is done at compile time. Now, the next point says pure polymorphism is the ability to choose among operations of the same name dynamically at runtime. So this is already in the bracket we have written done at compile time. So it is done at compile time. The function overloading, operator overloading, all these ideas are also polymorphism, but these are done at compile time, which we have already seen. Now we will see the pure polymorphism, that is, the ability to choose which function to use dynamically at runtime. So in C++, pure polymorphism is achieved through inheritance and virtual functions. So we have to have inheritance concept and virtual functions to implement pure polymorphism in C++. Any questions till now? Okay, so I assume no questions. So we will look at the next point, which says polymorphic behavior is possible only when an object is referenced by a reference variable or a pointer. So that is the most important point. So if you want to have, or if you want to achieve dynamic polymorphism, then you have to deal with a reference variable or a pointer. Means you have to use a reference variable or a pointer, so that the choice of the member function depends on the pointer type and not the object pointed to. Choice of the member function depends on the pointer type and not the object pointed to. So this is a compile time decision called static binding. So this is another name for compile time decision making, or compile time polymorphism is called as static binding. Means at the time of compilation, you will be clearly, that you, in the sense, the compiler clearly knows which function to call, or which function to associate, or which function to bind. Out of 4 similar looking functions, it will choose the right function based on the parameters, the type of parameter or the number of parameters. Based on that, you will be able to choose, or that is, you, as I said, as I told it, the compiler will choose. So this is called as compile time decision making, or alternatively the name is static binding. Binding, the word binding is connecting or linking. So your function call is linked or connected to a particular function at the compile time. That's the reason it's called as static binding. And it is done by this rule, that is, choice of the member function depends on the pointer type and not the object pointed to. Okay, now let us take this example. Consider an animal class, which is a base class, and I have a cat and a dog derived classes under the animal class. So something like this. You have the animal base class, you have cat derived from animal, you have dog derived from animal, and you have another breed of dog which is called poodle under the dog case. So something like this. So this is possible, right? I mean, you can create such a class structure. So consider this a base class and few derived classes in this way. And let us say that there is a function called ID function, member function in each of these classes, ID. Okay, I hope you are following. So there is a class which is shown like this, that is a base class of animal and cat and dog, and all of these classes have a member function called ID. So observe that the name is same name, ID. So let us write that. So class animal public void. So you have cout animal ID. ID is the function and it simply writes what is the class name animal. Next, similarly, class cat animal public. So you can observe that you are taking animal as the base class for cat. Again, in this, you are writing ID cat. Similarly, class dog public animal cout dog. So you are having the same function name, but you can observe that all these functions are in different classes with different results, that is animal, cat and dog being printed. So observe the function and the code carefully. So it's quite simple and clear and easy to understand the code.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, if I am doing a function overloading in a single class, so will it be called polymorphism?
Yeah, it is also polymorphism. The overloading is an example of static polymorphism.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So consider the collection of different animal objects. So you can do this, right? I mean, you have an animal array. So you can observe that you have an animal array wherein you have new animal, new dog, new cat. So there are 3 pointers of animal type and new animal, new dog, new cat. All of them I can assign or take the addresses and place them in a animal pointer type. Agree? There is no error in this code. Animal pointer type, and it's an array of animal pointers. New animal, new dog, new cat. Because dog is an animal, cat is an animal, so I can easily assign the base class pointers to these derived classes. Right? Very simple and clear. It is valid. It is legal. And now look at the next code. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to go through this, all these animal pointers. There are 3 animal pointers. So k equal to 0, k less than 3, k plus plus. So PA of k pointing to ID. So what you're trying to do, you're accessing the ID function through the pointer. Right? Following? So quite simple code. You're trying to access the ID function through the animal pointer. So what are we expecting? We are expecting animal, dog, cat. But what would be printed is animal, animal, animal. Why? Because as per the rule we just saw in the previous class, the pointer type is more important. So the pointer type was base class pointer. So therefore it accesses only the base class members. So therefore base class ID is animal. I mean the result of the base class ID function is animal. So therefore the 3 times you will get animal, animal, animal. So ignoring the more specific versions of the ID in the dog and the cat. So but what I want is animal, dog, cat, that kind of an output. So can I do that is the question. Okay, are you following the idea?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So let us see. So therefore the preceding code, that is this code, this code is not polymorphic because it gave you the same result, animal, animal, animal. But I wanted different results for different animals. I wanted that polymorphism, but that was not possible. So that's the reason it says the preceding code is not polymorphic. So it behaves the same way even though animal, dog, cat have different types and different ID member functions. So polymorphic code would have printed animal, dog, cat instead of animal, animal, animal. So this is what I want. Animal, dog, cat is what I want. So let us see what changes I should be making to the previous code to make it polymorphic. So the code is not polymorphic because of this expression, because we know that this will the compiler will see only the type of the pointer. The pointer is base pointer, so therefore it simply links or binds that call to the base function every time. So compiler does not see the actual object pointed to. Agreed? So this is what we saw in the previous class also. So it goes to the base version.
Means it does not support function overriding, right?
Sorry?
Means it does not support function overriding. This base class
it is not supporting function overriding. Correct. It is accessing the base class only, or whatever, because of the pointer being a base class pointer, so it accesses only the base class functions. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Therefore, now to solve that, or that is to get the result that we want, we will go with virtual functions. So there is no difference. I mean, not much of a different code or anything. We'll see how that is done. It's very simple. So declaring a function virtual will make the compiler check the type of each object to see if it defines a more specific version of the virtual function. So the moment you write the keyword virtual in front of any function, which is declared in the base version, so it will look if you have any specific versions of the same function derived, I mean, which in the derived class. If you have any specific version in the derived class, any special version, specific in the sense special, any special version of the same name of the same function in the derived class, then it will try to call that. So a virtual function is a function which is declared in the base class using the keyword virtual. So we write the body of the virtual function in the derived classes. Its purpose is to tell the compiler that the function we would like to call is based on the object of derived class. Right? The moment you write virtual, so the compiler will understand that you don't want to access the base class version, but instead of that, you may want to access the derived class version of the same name. So therefore, it will go and find out the derived class versions function, and then it will call that instead of base class. So C++ determines which function to call at runtime based on the type of object pointing to. Right. So why it is done at runtime? Because only when you run the program you will get to know what is the type of array and what you are pointing. I mean, what you are what you call using, or and based on that you will be able to take the decision. At the compile time, you will not be able to understand, or you will not be able to get to know what is the type of object, or what is the type of pointer that you will be using. So a virtual function, when called, resolves to the most derived version of the function that exists between the base and the derived class. This capability is known as runtime polymorphism. Okay. So what we studied earlier was static polymorphism, and this is runtime or dynamic polymorphism. We will show that same example. I mean, whatever example we saw that in the previous slides. So if the member function ID are declared virtual, then the code will look like this. So animal, so this is quite simple. Then you say for int k equal to 0 to this thing, and this is the same code. So only thing is you are supposed to write virtual keyword in the original code. All those ID codes, function IDs, you are supposed to write virtual. So that will print animal, dog, and cat. So like this, yeah. So you will simply add this virtual keyword before the function name. So virtual void ID animal. Similarly, in the cat also you can write that virtual void ID cat. Similarly, in the dog. So the moment you do this, so you will be able to print the derived class function call. you will be able to access the derived class function call. Right. So any questions till now?
No, sir, understood.
Yeah. Right. So function binding. So in this example, that is in this code, PA of k pointing to ID function, compiler must choose which version of ID to use. There are different versions of the same function in these three classes: animal, dog, and class. Animal, dog, and cat classes. So function binding is the process of determining which function definition to use for a particular function call. So the two function binding alternatives are static and dynamic. So just trying to give you what is the meaning of function binding. So there are two types of binding, static and dynamic. So what is binding? Binding itself is the process of determining by the compiler as to which function definition to use for a particular function call. Now coming to static binding. So static binding chooses the function in the class of the base class pointer. The function you have defined in the base class pointer or in the base class, ignoring any versions in the class of the object actually pointed to. So that is the meaning of static binding, right? So it goes with the base class version. Static binding is done at compile time. Static binding is also called as early binding. Alternate name for static binding is called as early binding, because early in the sense before the program is run. Before the program is actually running, the compiler is clearly knowing what function to use. So it is like early or before, early binding. Coming to dynamic binding. So dynamic binding says that dynamic binding determines the function to be invoked at execution time. Only when the function is, only when the program is running, you will be able to understand, or the compiler will be able to decide which function to call. So the compiler can look at the actual class of the object pointed to and choose the most specific version of the function. Okay, so can look at the actual class of the object pointed to and choose the most specific version of the function. So dynamic binding is used to bind virtual functions. It's also called as late binding. Late binding. As the word late, it says that is during runtime, you will be able to, in the sense the compiler will be able to decide which function to call. That's the reason it's called late binding. The other was early binding. So summary of virtual functions. So calling a method with an object pointer always invokes. So this gives you both points very clearly. That is, if you call a method, calling a method with an object pointer always invokes the most derived class function if the method is virtual. This is what we understood in today's class, the most derived class function if the method is virtual, or the function implementation corresponding to the object pointer type if a method is not virtual. It will call a function corresponding to the object pointer type if the method is not virtual. We saw both the cases, or both the examples. We saw how it behaves. If the method is not virtual, what happens? If the method is virtual, then what happens? Both are these statements are already observed in the previous examples. If a class does not contain virtual functions, then probably it is not meant to be used as a base class. You can observe that in practical scenarios. If a class does not contain virtual functions, then it probably means that it is not used as a base class. So usually it means what? Usually base class will have virtual functions. Usually base class will have virtual functions. Right. So when activating a method through a pointer to the base class, when activating, that is when calling a method through a pointer to the base class. So you have a pointer to the base class and you are trying to call a function through the base class pointer. Then what happens? So this is the summary again. Then it will check, that is the compiler will check if the method was not defined as virtual. If the method was not defined as virtual, then static binding is performed. The base class method will be linked. Agree? So if the method is not virtual, then you will do static binding and therefore you will simply link with the base class method. If the method was defined as virtual, then dynamic binding will be performed. The method of the appropriate class will be linked at runtime. Method of the appropriate class will be linked at runtime.
Sir, what if we declare a function as virtual, but there are no derived class present?
No, if you declare it as there are, if you have not specified any any specific versions in the derived classes, then it will simply access the base class only.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Right. You can go through this example. I mean, just observe the code. So there is a class A, and I have a virtual function get name. It will simply write the class name A, return A. Get name, it is simply writing the name of the class. Virtual function get name. The function's name is get name. Then class B, again you have virtual function get name and it returns B. Class B is a derived from class A. So you can observe that. Class B, public A. Now class C, public B. So class C is derived from B. Class C is derived from B. So note that there is no getName function here. There is no getName function in class C. So one of the student who just now asked, like, if I don't define in the derived version, if I don't have the function definition, then what happens? So you can observe that here. So you have class C, public B, and there is no function getName defined here in class C. Now class D, again, this is under class C, that is it is derived from class C. So public virtual. So get name return D. Okay, I hope you have observed the class, all the class definitions. Class A, class B is under A and C is under B and D is under C or derived from C. D is derived from C. So the most derived class is D and the base class is A. So that's quite simple and clear. Now look at the main code. The main code says you are defining a class called C. Class C. Then there is a reference of base class A, reference to the base class A, and that is address. That address is equal to C. And then standard, that is you're trying to call the cout. You're trying to call the getName function from through this base pointer, that is R base, and you want to display what you will get if you call this getName function through this base pointer. So what is the result? Observe the code. What is the result? Class C. Yeah.
I think it should be B.
It should be B.
And
So
because
as per
since
the
C does not have any definition, so the most recent one is that it is inheriting is B.
yeah. Right. So the most derived version is B now. There is no version of the same in the class C. So the most derived is B. So it will go and access the B's get name function. Right? Any other answers? Okay. So that is the answer. So B is the answer. The reason is also written over here. So just now as we discussed. So R base is a reference, is a pointer to the of the base type, reference pointing to the C object. So normally this would call the get name function in the A's base class A get name function. But since it is virtual, it calls the most derived matching function between A and C, and that is B, which prints B.
Sir, can you explain the meaning of most derived class?
Yeah, because see here class A is on the top, right? I mean that is the base class. Under A you have B, and then under B you have C. So the most derived is 1 second. Then yeah. So you have one class here, which is A. And then B is derived from A. And then under B you have C. So most derived is like the closest one, that is away from the base. Whichever is the far away from the base, starting from your type, that is object type, which is C. The object type is C. So suppose the object type was D, then from between D and A, which is far away from A, that becomes the most derived. If D itself has the version, then D itself gets printed. In this case, D has the get name function. So therefore, instead of C, if you replace instead of this C, if you write D here, the same function, I mean the same program, if you write D here, then this will print D, because D is the most derived matching function, the deepest. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Far away from the base, that is the most derived version between A to C in this case. Okay, now observe this function, I mean, sorry, this program, and try to tell me the output. Observe this program, and first point says A is not virtual. A is the base class. Observe here, A is the base class, but that same function get name is now not virtual. It's written here. So there is no virtual command, I mean virtual keyword here. So therefore get name is not virtual. Whereas in class B, it is virtual. Class C, virtual. Class D, virtual. Right? So that's the only difference. A, it is not virtual, whereas B, C, D, it is virtual. Now you are again defining a object of class C type, and then you are making a pointer to our reference of type A, that is class A's reference type, that is equal to C. Now you are seeing the C out R base dot get name. So which version will get, I mean, what will be printed in this case?
Sir, I think A, because here function overriding is not being done because it's not virtual.
Okay. Any other answers? Okay, so answer is A. So as one of your classmates pointed out, it is A. Since A is not virtual, when you call this function, A will be called. Right. So look at this example. Class A, it has the virtual keyword. So get name. Similar example. Only thing is the virtual keywords are, sometimes there and sometimes not there. So only in class A virtual is there. Class B, there is no virtual. Class C, there is no virtual. Class D, again there is no virtual. Only class A has virtual, but the other functions, the other classes have the same function name, but virtual name is missing. The virtual is missing. Observe that. So now what will be the result?
What will be B, sir.
Sorry?
Because the main RBase pointer is of type B class. So, and B is not virtual or anything. So no function overriding would be there.
Okay, so one answer is B. Any other answers? No other answer? Nobody is saying C, nobody is saying A. It has to be one among the three, A, B, C. Agree?
Sir, but usually when we say like B, the RBase object is of type B, right?
B.
Means class object B.
Okay.
So that's why I had a hunch that the answer would be B.
Right, but C, the type of the object is C, and it is also defined
But in
as
C there is no virtual,
no
right?
virtual word. Okay.
So no overriding would be there.
Okay. Let us see the answer. So it is C. So even though B and C are not marked as virtual functions, but the function in A, that is in the base class, was virtual, and the B and C are overrides. So therefore, B and C and even D all are considered as implicitly virtual, right? So this confusion or this kind of overlooking kind of error is possible by the programmer. So therefore, usually now what we use is, so even if you don't write the word virtual here, still it is, even if you have the base class name, if you have the virtual keyword only in the base class, and still the overriding is actually valid, that is, it works even though if you don't have virtual keyword here. So therefore, usually what we do is we use the keyword override, either virtual or override, both are okay. That is override in the derived classes. If you say get name is a overrided function, then you will write that here, override. Instead of virtual, you can write even override. Okay. So that writing it as override will make sure that you have actually overridden the base class version. That's like a clue or a hint for the programmer that there is a base class version of the same function, and I have overridden that base class version in this derived class. So you can use the keyword override also. That point is not in the slides, but I'm just telling you. So therefore, even if you don't use virtual in the derived classes, still it gets the virtual implicitly. So instead of that, you can even use the word override or write the keyword virtual. Right? Any questions?
Sir, can you tell us where I will be using this feature normally?
Okay. Can you repeat again?
So my question is like this kind of polymorphism. Where I will be using this kind of feature in my code? In where?
Yeah.
What is the use case scenario?
Yeah, like one simple use case we saw in the previous, in our own example only, animal you had, whereas you have specific details of each animal. The cat and a dog and on a horse or something. So you may have specific what do you call versions of the same function in each of those animal cases.
But sir, if I want to call those functions, then I can directly declare an object of that kind of class and call it, right?
But using pointers, that's the advantage, no? Using pointers, the advantage is that as I told you earlier, I mean, in one of the classes when we were discussing dynamic memory allocation, so I told you that without pointers, there is no programming. I mean, when you start programming, any and all of your programs will use pointers. So the moment you use pointers, then such things will come up, in the sense you don't want to use the base class version, and sometimes you want to use the base class version, and sometimes you want to use the derived class version. So all such things will exist. And without pointers, as I told, you don't have any option to write programming. I mean, write good programs. So you will be made to use, I mean, forced to use such things.
I'm not able to actually get, sir.
Okay, tell me what program you are writing, I mean, in your mini project. I mean, what is the topic? You can think about that way. I mean, in your topic, what can be the base class, and what one example function that I can use as virtual, and or that is treat as virtual and start using this idea. What is
your... Sir, my project, I'm not actually actively looking into that.
Oh, you just have 10 more days or less than that, no? 20th or something I told you in the previous class that you are supposed to show the code, or see, if you have not yet started, then it is not good. See, all these ideas, what I want, see, I have also told you that in mini project, you are supposed to implement all these ideas. So,
yes, sir.
But if you have not started, then it is not easy.
Yes, sir.
See, for example, account. See, you go with hierarchy. I mean, inheritance. The examples that we started with, student, and that kind of thing. So you can think about one or the other function which requires a override. So without any such requirements, they would have not come up with these ideas, right? Like, for example, sound of the animal.
Yes,
let us say animal will make some sound. So yes, sound of a dog is different, sound of a cat is different, sound of a horse is different. I mean, so every time you cannot call the sound function of the base class. So you have to have a derived version of the sound function in every derived class. In different animals, you have different sounds. So you have to override. Otherwise, you have to give a default sound for the any animal in the base class, a default sound. If you cannot override, then maybe the sound is mute or sound is silence or whatever. Just as an example, I'm trying to give you that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I got your point. But my point is, if I want to access the derived class, for example, if I am at the horse, but I won't be needing to call the cat sound function in a horse class, right?
Correct. Agreed.
Yes, sir. So I don't get the point of calling someone else function from.
We are not calling some other function. See, what I'm trying to write. I mean, where do you see that we are calling some other's function? I'm not able to understand that idea.
So here we are calling the get name function of other classes, right? Trying to.
This example only, the present example you are saying?
Yes, sir.
The type is class C. So basically you are trying to deal with a class C object. But the point is you have a pointer of a different type. That is, pointer is of the base B type.
Yes, sir.
So that means there is some advantage of using a class B pointer to address or to try to access the class C, because C is a type of B, means C is derived from B. So therefore this is valid. So when you have this, then next is can I have a specific version in C, or do I have a common version in B? So which one should I call? Should I call the specific version or should I call the common version? So that depends on how you code. That depends on what is required as per your application.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So bypassing the default access of a derived member function. So there may be cases where you want a base pointer to a derived object to call a base class function instead of the derived class member function. That is, by default it calls the derived class, but you don't want to have the derived, you want to access the base class. Then how will you do that? So we can do that by use of a scope resolution operator like this. So derived D or D and then base class, address of the base class equal to derived. So you created a base pointer and assigned it to a derived object. Then what you are doing is cout base dot base, that is b dot base colon get name, that is scope resolution operator get name of. So if you do this, then it will precisely or clearly call the base version instead of the derived version. So this is how you can even bypass the default access to the derived member class or member function. Right? Any questions? See, this topic or this subject entirely is a completely practical oriented subject. I mean, unless you practice, unless you write programs, you will not be able to understand, or you'll not be able to thoroughly, get a clarity on what the subject is or how it behaves. So this is the best chance that you have to write programs, to do that mini project. Anyhow, it's not going in vain. That is, you have some marks allotted for that mini project. Please take it seriously and do it. And I have told you the way also, right? You can start from the beginning and try adding all those concepts that you studied every week. It need not be a completely useful or a real time kind of a project. I mean, just for you to understand how it behaves, like understand how a friend function behaves, understand how a copy constructor behaves. So you should try to write the program and expect a answer and check whether that answer matches with your expected answer, so that it will give you the confidence that you have understood the idea correctly. If it matches, that means you are right, or mostly you are right. So you have to do the practical, this thing to it. If you have not started, please, I request all of you to start the mini project. Otherwise, you will not be able to understand it clearly. And I have started giving examples of what you can try also. The exercises I gave you in the previous class, you can try all those exercises. You can think in your mini project, what function I can plan for a virtual function. So you can think like that and at least implement one virtual function and override the virtual function in the derived class. Just to try to use it. It may not be of any practical usage. But the point is you go through that exercise. Any other questions? I think this is the last slide for this topic. Yeah. So any questions?
No, sir, understood.
Right. So we'll be taking up the next topic.
So also wanted to ask, today we'll be having the quiz.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Next topic is virtual destructors. Right. So is this visible, virtual destructors?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So the point also very clearly says easy and complete cleanup of memory. So we just now saw the virtual function. So this is an example of the same, that is an usage of the same virtual function in the case of virtual destructors. Okay, so just observe this particular code. So you have class X, there is nothing there, simple. There are two public functions. One is the constructor, one is the destructor for class X. Similarly, class Y derived from X, public derivation from X. Again, Y also has very simple two functions, constructor and destructor of Y. Very simple, right? All of you observed this code, quite simple. Now look at this continuation. This is continuation, class Z. Again, Z also has a similar function, constructor and destructor. And in your main program, whenever Z is declared, its constructor is called, right? And before executing it, that will call Y's constructor and Y will call X constructor. That is what we saw, right? I mean, if you remember the order of this thing, the student and undergraduate student, that example, the same thing, but here it is a three-level inheritance. Similarly, when you finish, that is at the destructor time, sorry, this is not destructor. So after X is constructor is done, then the control will return to the Y's constructor, and then once Y is done, then it will return to the Z's constructor. Clear? Okay. So we will stop it here right now. We will take up the test, that is the quiz, the 2 marks quiz. So after 3 minutes, we'll come back. So you need not leave the meeting. You can continue the meeting. Be in the meeting. So just you can go and finish your quiz and come back. Right. Shall we continue? Are my slides visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Parent constructors and destructors.
Sir, actually, I wanted to ask one doubt.
Yeah.
So, in the quiz that you had given, you had mentioned public 2 times. Like, it was not necessary, right, to mention like within the same class. You mentioned public for the data members, and then public again, the access specifier for mentioning the functions. But
Yeah.
actually, was it required?
No, I don't remember what I have done. May not be required. I mean, even if you write twice public, I mean, public, the same keyword again for definition of another, member, then does not matter. I mean, you can repeatedly use public. There is no issue.
Okay, sir. Okay.
It's not that you have to bunch all the public members together in one slot. There is no such rule. You can keep repeating public, private, private, public, protected. I mean, in any way you want to. That's not an issue.
So because it can give compile error if we write public, I think 2 times, because
Is
there
it
was
continuously public and again public?
no, it was like public, and then the data members are defined like int
Uh-huh.
x, comma int y, and
Okay.
then public again, and then the functions are defined.
Yeah, no problem, no problem.
So it won't give a compile error, right?
No. I don't think so. It
Okay,
won't.
sir.
Yeah. Right. So coming to this topic, so parent constructor and destructor. So you just saw now there are three classes X, Y, Z, and how they were defined, and there were constructors and destructors in each of those three classes. And let us see how they are called. That is, we have seen that how the call is made to constructors and destructors. So we just want to revise that. I mean, just for our revision kind of a thing, because we are going to use this idea again. Right. So parent default constructors execute in top-down order. That is, even though you are creating a Z type variable or a object of Z type, the X constructor gets called first, then the Y, and then the Z. Similarly, when you are going out of the scope, so the destructor of Z is called first, and then Y destructor, and then X destructor. So this is how it goes on. We have seen this in the previous week's classes also. Now look at this another example. So there is a class called person, and again there is a constructor which is quite simple, person's constructor, and then there is a name equal to new character. That is, you take in the new name, or you allocate some amount of memory to that name, and then string copy that name to your string copy the s whatever is sent into your new name. So this is the constructor of the person. Then destructor, because you allocated means you dynamically memory allocation was done here, new, using new. So in the destructor you have to use the delete. So that is what is done here. So quite simple, constructor here and destructor here for the person class. And the class has one char star name. Right. So now continuing, I have a student class which is derived from person class. So now again student will have a constructor. I mean, you can look at that. So major is a variable in the student class. So you will allocate some number of characters to the major and then copy that to your student class. And then there is a delete major, this thing. Similar idea, person and student. Okay, and observe that this student has two parameters. This student constructor has two parameters. One is the student name, that is the person's name, and one is the major, means what type, what course he is taking, what major course he is taking. So there are two, this thing here. Okay, so I hope these two codes are clear. So going to the next slide, this is the main function. You're simply calling a person X and the person name is Shri, and there is another student Y, and the name of the student is Ram, and the major is programming. Clear? This is the main function. Now, because of this, how will the constructor and destructors be called, and what is the amount of allocation, that is the memory allocation that is being done when X is instantiated? That is, when person X is instantiated, the person constructor is called, and it allocates 4 bytes of memory to store the string SRI. Agreed? Quite simple. So similarly, when Y is instantiated, it calls the person constructor first, which will allocate 4 bytes of memory to store the person's name, that is RAM, and then allocating 12 more bytes for storing the programming. So quite simple and clear. So you will call, I mean, because of this person X, the person constructor is called, and because of the student Y, person is called, and then student is called, because student was the derived from person. So quite simple. So there are 3 constructor calls here. Similarly, when I go out of the scope, what will happen? It will call the destructors. So when the scope of Y terminates, Y's destructor deallocates 12 bytes of memory used for programming, and then that will call the person destructor, which will deallocate 4 bytes of memory used for RAM. So finally, the person destructor is called for the destroying X, deallocating 4 bytes that are used. Clear? So the 3 constructors were called, and accordingly 3 destructors were called. Observing this, very simple, quite straightforward. There is no confusion also. Now look at this. Next slide. So the summary is, in an inheritance hierarchy, each constructor invokes its parent constructor before executing itself, and each instructor invokes its parent destructor after executing itself. This is what we have observed. Now look at this code. So, and the title says memory leak and virtual destructors. So let us see how memory leak is happening here in this code. Observe this code. There is a class called X, public. There is a constructor P equal to new int of 2. So X constructor is called. Then destructor of X, delete P. Simple. And int is a, P is a int pointer. P is a int pointer, and therefore you are simply allocating 2 integer array. 2 integer and taking that address to P. Quite simple code, and there is no error in this code. It's quite simple and straightforward. Look at this part of the code. Class Y, public X. Now class Y has Y equal to new int of 1023. So it's a huge array. Again, Q is a int pointer, obviously, right? Because you're trying to assign an integer array address to Q. And again, here also, Y's constructor, this is Y's constructor, and this is Y's destructor. And you are deleting Q. 100% right. Very good program. No error. Now look at the main function. Main function, you have int I equal to 0 to 8. X, there is a pointer of type X and new Y, and then delete R. Correct, no? All of you following? So you are creating a new Y type, and the pointer of that is allocated to X, and then you are simply saying delete R. So look what happens here. So this loop would invoke the base class constructor as well as the Y's constructor, allocating 4100 bytes. That is 4 bytes of each, 4 bytes for each int in each iteration. So 1023 into 4 plus 2 into 4, that is equal to 4100 bytes. So many bytes are getting allocated here. Observing? So can you observe the code and tell me where is the memory leak? Because if you look at the previous slide, that is this slide, this had its own destructor very clearly, and even this X also had its own destructor very clearly. But still, there is a error in this program. Error in the sense, not error. I mean, there is a memory leak issue in this program. So that is what we'll be looking at now. So the problem is over here. If you observe, R is declared to be the pointer of X, I mean pointer to X objects, X type pointer. So since R is declared as a pointer of type X, so only the X destructor is invoked. Because you are saying delete R. R is what type? R is of type X. So therefore only X destructor will be invoked. It deallocates only 8 bytes. And the remaining 4092 bytes are lost in every iteration. Imagine. So how many bytes are allocated but never retrieved or never taken back? So then a huge memory leak is possible here. This is almost, I mean, not almost, nearly 4K in every loop. So there are 8 such loops. So you can even change your program and you can lose a lot of memory. So now, how will I solve this? This is the output. I mean, if you try to look at the program,
we can make the pointer of type Y only in the first place.
No, but for many other reasons, I may not be able to. I mean, I may not want to do that pointer type as Y, because I may want to use the base pointer only, and I may have many other objects of the same type which I want to access, like animal and the other objects like dog, cat, horse, variety. So I want to have that base pointer only. So in such a case, so it's a very simple idea of virtual this thing, because you have a overridden version in the derived class also. So that if you want to use, you have to use the virtual keyword. Yeah, virtual destructor. So this is what would be happening with the previous output. So only the X destructor is invoked. So then how can we invoke the Y destructor? So then the answer is, how to fix this memory leak is use the keyword virtual in the X destructor. So the moment it sees virtual keyword in the parent, that is in the base class, it will immediately go for the destructors in the derived classes also. So it will start destructors of the derived class, and it will then come to the destructor of the main class or the parent class. So the rule says, that is rule of thumb. I mean, a general rule, you can say that you have to declare the base destructor virtual whenever your class hierarchy uses dynamic memory allocation. So you should be careful whenever you have inheritance, and whenever in that inheritance, when you have dynamic memory allocation, then you have to write virtual destructors. That is, you have to use the virtual keyword in the destructors so that you will be not making a memory leak. Is this clear? So I hope you understood how the memory leak was actually happening in the previous slide. So then once you make it as a virtual destructor, then if you observe, Y's destructor is called, then X destructor is called. Y's destructor is called, then X destructor is called. So in all the iterations, you have got Y and X both destructors being called. So in each iteration of the loop, the VAT or the calls being made to both the destructors, restoring all the memory that was allocated by the new operator. Right. So this will finish the virtual destructors topic. So any questions?
No, sir, understood.
Yeah. So please try to use dynamic memory allocation and all these topics in your mini project. Look at the possible, ideas, or look at the possible cases wherein you can use such a thing. So you cannot think, or you cannot say that you did not get any case or any chance of using a particular idea or a particular concept. So all these concepts you can use in your mini project. See, it's a teamwork. So it's not that only one of you have to do it. So it's a teamwork. So all of you can think about and discuss for about say 20 minutes every day or 30 minutes every day, and plan your code and write the code. So I don't think it is very difficult. So please put your effort. It is useful for you to understand the concepts, and also to clear most of your interviews, placement interviews, placement written tests, all those things. It is all useful there. All your seniors have told the same every time. Right. So we will stop it here. We'll continue in the next class. Any questions?
No, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll stop it here now. Right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So